Hello, everyone. The Westbrook Country Playhouse would like to welcome you to another episode of Coffee Break. My name is Jacob Santos, and I'm your host. And this is the space where we talk to colleagues and artists about their career, their time here at the Playhouse, and about the industry. So thank you for joining us today. How are all of y'all? So for me, I'm doing really good, but actually, it was so sunny today, and a couple of minutes ago, it started downpouring here in Westport. Like, it looked like a hurricane outside. Like, at one second, it was super sunny, and the next second, all I saw was just downpours of rain and wind. Trees were moving back and forth. The roof of the Playhouse looked like a slip and slide. It was a lot, but like now it stopped raining, so now it's bright and sunny again. So hope everyone is staying dry and warm during these strange times. But again, everyone, welcome to Coffee Break. My name is Jacob Santos. And today I'm really excited to talk to my guest, Andrew Boyce. He is a designer and he has designed for the Playhouse before in our productions of Twelfth Night, Loot, and the Understudy. And design, like I told y'all before, is kind of a blind spot for me. So I'm really excited to talk to Andrew about, his craft and his work. And I saw that he is here. Andrew, I'm going to bring you on right now. Here we go. Andrew,
Hey,
how are you?
how are you, Jacob?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Andrew, you were telling me that you haven't really done Instagram Live before, right?
This is the first time. I've never done Instagram Live. I don't even think I've looked at an Instagram Live stream before. So, trial by fire. Here we go. Right?
Exactly. Thank you for joining me. The first time I did this was my first time doing Instagram Live as well.
Totally. Yeah.
So, we're both newbies.
Well, it's nice to meet you and great to be on with you guys. So.
Of course. Andrew, usually I ask people at the top of the show how are they doing, but then I've realized that's kind of a loaded question to ask during this time.
It's a tough question these days. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was watching another one of these shows, and someone asked one of their guests how they were taking care of themselves during this time. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, that is an interesting question. So I'm going to make it more specific, and I'm going to ask you that. How have you been taking care of yourself during this time?
I would say the newest way that I've been taking care of myself, and I suppose have been taking care of my family as well. I've got two little boys. Is that we live in Chicago, and after a couple of months of wrangling them at home and trying to deal with teaching and teaching them at home and that kind of thing, we just felt like we really needed to get out of town. So we got very, very lucky, frankly, and managed to find a renter for our place in Chicago. My wife helped with that, and we just decided to head out west, and we've been camping and hitting up some wonderful spots in the beautiful parts of the West and visiting family on the West Coast. So yeah, I don't think I've been this tan since like 20 or 30 years ago, and it's great.
Oh, wow.
It feels great to get out and be in nature and that kind of thing. It's one of we kind of are recognizing it as a silver lining that it's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So
Definitely, especially during this time where all of us are kind of like sheltered in place, and I feel like everyone went to the internet or technology to take care of themselves. So like that's a very different and like really exciting experience, just to go out, be in nature, disconnect, no Zoom calls,
Yeah, no, totally socially distanced, just isolated away from people and, in various spots. Yeah, it's been great.
So Andrew, another question I like to ask guests is about their experience with theater. Like, how did you first get involved with theater? Like, what is your theater journey?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's always a fun one. I went to undergrad hell bent on being an architect, actually. And so I went to undergraduate school or undergrad at Middlebury College in Vermont. And architecture was my first passion. But I was so gung-ho about it that I had kind of completed almost the entirety of the degree, other than my thesis, by the middle of my sophomore year. And so I was, exploring other things that I was interested in, from history to, theater and, different artistic practices. And I kind of fell back in love with being in the theater. And of course I tried acting at first and was terrible, of course. But then found my way backstage, and a director friend that I had worked with knew that I had an interest in architecture, and they kind of recruited me to design a set. And really that's been all she wrote ever since then. So, it kind of it always really captured my imagination and felt like a wonderful intersection of all my different interests and curiosities. So, yeah.
Awesome. I love hearing people's stories, and I feel like I've heard that a lot, where people say like, oh, it was just like, something I got involved with. It wasn't something I was really pursuing. And then something about theater just kind of captures you. So yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, you get the bug, right? It's just once you fall in love with it, it's really hard to turn back, I suppose. So yeah.
Yeah, and you spoke a little bit about your undergrad experience, but I was wondering if you could talk about like what it was like for graduate school, because you studied at the Yale School of Drama.
Yeah, right up the road from you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Yale is such a wonderful, wonderful place. I was actually reflecting on it recently. I think the thing that now strikes me, and that I appreciated then, but more and more as I get on in life, and I'm also teaching now at a graduate program, and what I've come to realize is how extraordinary the community at Yale really is, due to the particular aspects of it being a school nestled within such a kind of intellectually rigorous university, and the fact that there are people there to study all different aspects of theater making, from the stage managers to people that are, like your own Michael Barker, studying to be producers and general managers. And, everybody's there with these different backgrounds and different skill sets, but they're there, with a similar focus and drive and kind of set of values, pursuing professional and educational theater at the highest standard. And it's really it's a really unique thing. And I think, the history of it and the people that are there create just a really dynamic community. And it's very fun to be in a place, that is kind of insular and focused and supportive and all of those things. So yeah, I loved it. I had a wonderful time being there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually going to start studying there in the fall for theater management.
Oh, fantastic.
The same program Michael did. I'll be moving actually to New Haven this Saturday. So I'm in the whole process of moving over there. So
congratulations.
Thank you
I moved around a lot. I bet you'll be in one of the buildings I was in at some point.
Yeah. So for like me as like a new student going in there, like what should I look out for, or like what would you like tell yourself if you were going in new and fresh again, to like what to look out for in terms of like things to be a part of, or ways to like make that experience the best that it can be?
Well, I think, picking up on that kind of train of thought that I was on just a bit ago, I think that, the more that you can learn about all of the other things that people are doing, the better. I think, making theater really does take a village. It takes everybody to do it, from the actors, especially in this day and age. I mean, at its core, all you really need is an actor and an audience member, I suppose. But, I think as we add these crucial layers and people that are there in support of creating an event for actors and audience members to connect, I think especially in this day and age, it really takes a group effort. And I would just say, have conversations with as um, diverse and vast a group of people as you can, and really, be curious about what all of the other people are doing. For instance, I don't think that I mean, I have plenty of friends who went through the program for general management, but at the time, I don't know that I spent as much time as I would have liked learning about, the ins and outs of producing and the kinds of things that, Michael Barker was learning, for instance. And now in hindsight, I'm really curious about those things. So anyway, that's the best I can offer at the moment.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So let's get into your work. Like, you are a designer and you've designed sets and among other things. So this is actually, as I was telling the community here, it's kind of a blind spot for me because I took a Principles of Design class in undergrad, but I haven't really been a part of the design process. So I
Mm-hmm.
was wondering if you could take me through the steps of when you get hired or contracted to do a design. Like, how long are you on the project for? Like, what is that whole process like?
Well, as far as the timeline goes, it really varies quite
Mm.
significantly. I mean, there are I've been on plays that I've had to design. I've gotten hired late to design and had to come up with something in a matter of weeks, if not days. And then I've been hired to design some projects in the opera world that have been 2 to 3 years out. So it really kind of, it can differ. And that's actually kind of one of the exciting things is that, it's a challenge to juggle all these different projects at different times, with different timelines and at different phases of a process. And that's a skill set in and of itself, but it definitely keeps things interesting and moving in a really kind of dynamic and refreshing way. Um, you know, of course, when you get hired, you're immediately just trying to immerse yourself in the source material, whether it's the opera with a libretto and score and the music, or if it's a play, the play, and then the world that is being created by the authors, right? I mean, I'm a huge believer in kind of diving into the dramaturgy as rigorously as you can and trying to see things from the writer's perspective, try to understand what the characters are doing, understand the world of the characters, the world of the play or piece. And, I think that really creates a kind of dramaturgical foundation for any of the ideas that come, come to bear in your collaboration. So from there, you start kind of in a more isolated place, and then you of course start talking with your fellow designers and your director, and it just kind of builds upon itself, and you work with your team to kind of come up with a point of view about why you're doing the play, what you want to do with the play, what it's meant to say, its relationship to the audience and the time and the context you're in. um, and then from there, as you kind of grab onto that idea, that you really work to, at least from my experience, what I try to do is work to kind of essentialize that and figure out what are the most important um, elements, what's the biggest and best version um, of the idea, and how all the different elements of design can enhance and support that idea. So,
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome. So for a designer, once you submit that final design, is that the designer's like endpoint in terms of like involvement in a project, or does a designer also sometimes go past that point, like when the
Oh
set's
no,
built?
no. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm a believer that designers, the best designers are designing all the way through till opening night. They've got their eye on everything, and the collaborations that I have with other designers and with directors um, are are wonderful in that I that no part of the creation is siloed, right? Like even though I may be done with the heavy lifting of creating a set design prior to the moment that we all get on stage together, at that point, it's my it's an opportunity for me to really collaborate with the director on how the actors are using the space, and to collaborate with the lighting designer and the costume designer in what other tweaks we can make, how lighting is interacting with the space or the environment. And all of that is just another layer to the design process that brings a vision to fruition. So I think that's again one of the things I find really wonderful about designing, is that you keep working on it, and you keep looking, and you keep tweaking and collaborating until it opens and you are where you are, and then you let it go. Yeah.
And is that the moment, so like as content creators, I feel like no matter what part you are in the creation process, we all kind of have this like stress that's on us, and like we're waiting for that moment of relief where we're just like, okay, it's out in the world, this is what it is, the relief is gone. For actors, it's probably at the end of a run. For directors, maybe it might be opening night. So for you as the designer, is it opening night where you're just like, phew, okay, it's done, it is what it is, it's out in the world? Or is it like when the show closes and the set is taken down? So like, when is that moment for you?
Oh, it's usually opening night. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I totally have a kind of love-hate relationship with that in some ways. Like, it's, the ephemerality of it is what makes it wonderful and purposeful and meaningful in so many ways. I admittedly am a little bit of like a perfectionist. And so I'm always feeling like, oh, well, maybe what if this wanted to get tweaked, or what if we wanted to work that moment a little bit more? So, that's like my own personal conversation and my own thing that, is part of my artistic journey in terms of like letting go of a project and moving forward on to the next one. Right. So, yeah.
Definitely. And Andrew, could you tell me an example of designing for a project that you really, really enjoyed, like one that pops out in your mind where you're just like, oh, that was a really special experience?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, so last year, one that comes to mind right now, and this is actually like one of the hardest things I've ever had to design. A year ago, I was in the throngs of designing a co-pro at New York Theater Workshop. These two wonderful plays by this playwright, M.F.A. One play is called Run Boy Run, and the other is In Old Age. And I had previously done In Old Age at the Magic Theater in San Francisco, where I have a long relationship with them. And on the surface, the two plays would appear to have a substantial overlap in terms of their real estate and their kind of setting, their context. But then when you dive in and look a little closer, they call for very different they have very different needs. They call for very different sensibilities. And there were a couple technical things structured into the plays that were really, really challenging for both. And to find a way to kind of have those two plays live together in the same space on the same set was extraordinarily challenging, and but also really wonderfully rewarding. I mean, we just worked and worked and worked. The directors, Loretta Greco and Awoye Tempo, we worked, and it was one of those processes, kind of like what I was describing before, where we just had to keep at it all the way through load in, all the way through tech, and keep adjusting, keep rewriting, keep editing. And I think at the end of the day, it ended up being um, a really rewarding experience for everybody. And I think we were able to support the plays as best we could under those circumstances. And it was beautiful. They, beautiful performances. The actors were incredible. So that's one that comes to mind. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I miss live theater.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of
Hopefully we'll
that,
be back together soon. Yeah.
I know. But in the meantime, there's just been this interesting thing of the Zoom play or the digital play. So I'm wondering if you like dipped your toes into that space, designing for that space, or have you seen like a Zoom play or theater online? And like, what are your thoughts about like this whole experience that we're all trying to create
Sure.
online?
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, I guess the one thing that I've kind of dipped my toe into, or the one project I've had that dipped its toe into that, is that I had a production of Giulio Cesare get canceled up at Boston Lyric Opera this spring, and they're working with an animator and myself um, to create a kind of virtual experience for their patrons. And the idea, what I understand is that the idea basically came about because I had built, a kind of fully rendered, fully built and designed 3D model of the architecture of the space. It was a site-specific opera. So I built the space and I built the design in 3D. And so we have been able to take that and import it into a kind of gaming world. And we are working to make a virtual experience where there are these pop-ups and recordings of the arias and things like that for patrons to get to experience as a substitute for the real thing. So that's the closest I've come. I haven't designed anything yet that is live in the way that some other productions are live. I will say I've watched quite a few, and I will say, and I'm not wanting to be negative when I speak about it, but it does make me miss live theater. It makes me a little bit woeful, and it for me, it has reinforced the value of being together in the same room. I think I think my point of view has come around to the fact that that's what theater means. We're there to have a experience collectively together in the same space, and that is the kind of essence of it, and that's where the magic really happens. And that said, I wholeheartedly appreciate all of the efforts that people are undergoing to maintain their audiences, to keep people interested, to examine what theater means, and to think about what theater can be post-COVID, because I think those are all really important questions. I think theater is a art form that requires revolution, requires forward thinking, and for people to be constantly investigating how it can be different, how it can be better, and all of the above. So I appreciate the conversation that the kind of streaming events are creating. But I do think that at the end of the day, we all just need to be back together.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
And I'm so interested to see, like, I feel like a lot of us feel that way, but I'm interested to see, like, what digital components of, like, this process that are going to continue once things open up. Like, I'm part of one Zoom play project, and the actors that are in it are literally from all over the country. So, like,
Yeah.
say someone wants to, like, do a reading or a workshop for a piece, and they don't have actors that are immediately in their city, they can just go on Zoom and do the workshop there or do the reading there. So like those things to
Yeah,
me,
I
I'm just
think
like, oh, maybe that's the space.
absolutely. I mean, I think that it is certainly focusing. I think that it is really kind of the experience that we're all having is really kind of pointing out some inefficiencies and potential efficiencies that we can all be embracing and thinking about as we move forward and in the kind of in the process of making theater. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Definitely. So Andrew, I have some questions for you from some of our viewers. So
Oh yeah.
let me pull it up on my computer. So Beth wants to know, oh, this is a good question. What is your first step when designing? So what's the first thing you do?
Oh, without a doubt, read the play at least 2 or 3 times. No.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
I always try to read it at least once, just on one sit down. You know, and in this day and age, that can be it has to be a deliberate time that I've carved out for myself, right? I'll say one thing a little bit more about that, which is that you know, things are so busy, and I've got kids running around and things like that. You know, sometimes I'll have to just wait. I'll have to put off that very important first read until the right time. Like, I have to be kind of ready to receive it. And you know, I've come to learn that I only get that opportunity to read it for the first time in one sit down, to kind of let it hit me, to hear the voices. I only get that one time. So I really try to you know, kind of keep that time sacrosanct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And after you read the script, is the process, so like when you talk with the director, also the director probably has their own idea of like what the world of the show looks like. So is that like another step where you've read the play, you have your idea what the world looks like, but now you talk with the director and now you get more information? So is that like, has there ever been a moment where you're just like, oh, I see this world differently, or you're just like, oh yeah, we are on the same page of like what this is?
It's all, I mean, that's like part of what's wonderful about it. It's all different, right? I mean, there have been you know, every collaboration and process is different. There have been processes that I've undergone where you know, a point of view brought to the table by a director or another collaborator just was really honed in and clear. And as soon as, I may not have thought of it, but as soon as I hear it, it's like, oh yes, that is absolutely it. This is what we need to acknowledge in the way that we need to move forward. That's happened where I feel like I may have brought in that particular point of view that kind of is, you know, is the spark for the fire, or where we head with a production. But, you know, more often than not, it's all of us kind of just conversing and sharing our different points of view, finding a common language for how we talk about the play, and fusing our different ideas together into you know, a kind of group point of view that's going to you know, take us on our journey. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Let me go to the next question. So Angie wants to know, how are you keeping yourself entertained or busy during this time? I'm sure being a father keeps you very busy. So entertainment, what does that look like for you?
I mean, you know, I can maybe steal an HBO show at the end of the day, you know, like Succession, or I don't know what I've been watching lately. But, you know, I got to admit, I am like up to my eyeballs with like little boys right now. I mean, it is I think one of the biggest challenges of the time right now is how to you know, parent at home with kids that are, you know, not in school, try to keep them on their keep them growing and learning in the way that they need to, you know, be a supportive co-parent and partner, and you know, just trying to keep on top of everything. It's a lot. So I sadly don't have the most exciting answer as far as you know, how I'm keeping self-entertained. But there have been plenty of cocktails and plenty of good conversations, and I can steal a show in at the end of the day, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Andrew, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you one last question. It's sort of similar to the one Angie asked, but if you could recommend one thing to the audience, whether it be a play, a book you've read, a podcast, a musical album, a movie, TV show, anything that you've consumed that you would recommend to everyone, what would it be?
Oh, I'm in the middle of reading these 3 kind of fascinating and fantastic books by a writer named Yuval Harari, and he's a historian, and I think the first one is called Sapiens. Then there's another. The name is escaping me. I haven't read that one yet, but I'm in the middle of 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, and it is proving to be, really fascinating and interesting to think about, what we're facing as a species in the world right now, frankly. So it feels prescient, and it's definitely given me a lot to think about. So.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me and me being your first Instagram Live experience.
Yeah, thank you. I hope it went all right, and yeah. So I appreciate it. Thanks,
Andrew. Have a great day.
You too. I look forward to meeting you in person sometime down the road. And if you see people at Westport, give them my best, send them my love, and let them know I hopefully will get a chance to see them soon. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thanks. Bye.
Well, that was Andrew. I learned so much about the design process because I have acted before in undergrad, and I've been through a producing process or a marketing process. So I know the business steps or the artistic steps you need to take for things like that. But I really had no clue of the process of a designer. What are the steps that they go through, or when is the timeline of their job? So thank you so much, Andrew, for educating me on that. And it was just so great to hear him talk about his craft. This is why I love doing the show. Just hearing artists talk about the work. It's just so great. And thank you all for being on this journey with me. I hope you had a great time. I'll be back again next week at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Thank y'all. Have a great day.